Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we'll be talking about a growing potential for a pretty nasty storm that could be occurring into next week. And normally I would be making this video or making my first videos about this upcoming storm probably ideally on Wednesday or even Thursday, but I've had a really busy week with school and whatnot, so I am trying to get this video in, on Friday, while this thing is going to be most likely occurring Wednesday and Thursday into next week, meaning after the Valentine's and the Super Bowl and whatnot, if I'm not being clear enough. So yes, this thing has a good potential for dropping quite a bit of heavy snow. Obviously, we are pretty far out, less than a week, but it's still far out. And what that means is basically we don't know exactly where this will occur. Though I would say in that, for that side of the question, it's actually there's pretty good agreement. But the bigger disagreement is how strong the system will be. Sorry about that. The orientation of the system, meaning will it be more kind of a snowmaker, a rainmaker, which one will be more known for, and severe weather. It's at this point we are almost in mid-February, so this isn't like January where we have very low atmospheric precipitation and there's not a lot of moisture to work with, unless there's a storm once in a while that does. And in this case, this is that storm that's once in a while, but it's also mid-February, so the Gulf. Sorry about that. The Gulf is heating up. We're going to have, you can see the snapshot from what the European model shows. A lot of moisture, a lot of rain, and obviously on the snowy side, there could be a lot of snow, and it could be a blizzard, as these winds are going to be squeezed from a strong high pressure to the north and the low pressure to the south. So yes, it's a nasty system if this were to occur. Not a historic one at this point. Nothing seems alarming, but definitely something noteworthy, and I want to start talking about this. So let's start beginning to show you the different weather models. I've talked long enough, giving you a little preview of what this video is about. Again, not everyone that that's watching this video will see snow. Not even everyone that's watching this will get impacted by the storm. It's a large country, the United States. The system's large, but it doesn't cover all 48 states at once. Now, I do want to say that before we get into this, if you guys are new to this channel, I talk about the weather. I talk about storms. I love the winter storms. I love summer storms. I love everything with the weather. I'm a hobbyist, enthusiast, not a professional meteorologist. Obviously, for official weather data, always go to the National Weather Service. Don't, resort to my channel. This is just for the fun of it, and I want to make that clear. If you watch the channel, if you liked it, consider subscribing, consider liking. I always say this at the beginning, not at the end, because I always forget at the end. I get too worked up about the weather. So, yeah, if you want to do that now. If you have any comments, questions, please leave them down below. Well, let's start talking about this system more in specific. So I just want to say this thing is still far out, right? So if you're starting to worry about your Super Bowl plans or your Valentine's plan or whatever is going on across the next few days this weekend, pretty busy, right, for a lot of people, just usually how weekends are, starting to, a lot of people maybe especially across the Southwest, starting to feel the spring air. Southern California is in a heat advisory in February, which is rather absurd. But do note that for the Mid-Atlantic, Virginia, you can see right there, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and Southern Pennsylvania, West Virginia, you could see a little bit of snow on Sunday. So that is Super Bowl Sunday, I believe. Yeah, I think that is Super Bowl Sunday. And do note that it's not an impressive system, right? You might have heard some people talk about this as, a massive system, massive storm. And I said even a week ago that there's just not enough things working with the system to produce this into a winter storm. And that's exactly what happened. You could see it stayed off the coast, and even if it were to go on the coast, it would be a broad area of maybe 3 to 6 inches tops, which doesn't really qualify as a major storm, especially when it's held to systems like what we had a few weeks ago across the Northeast, where Boston, Massachusetts saw almost 25 inches of snow. So yeah, that's gone. That's not going to do anything. And see, this is now Monday, start of the new work week. Everything seems benign, nothing bad. But what we do want to show you is that we have a lot of warm air here. What that means by itself, that's fine. However, we have a high pressure that is situated at such a certain position in the Gulf that there's a lot of moisture that's also being streamed towards the north with the help of this low pressure. Let me draw this out for you. So the high pressure is situated right in there, even though the H is over there. That's slightly weaker one. The stronger one is right here, and you can see these lines, right? They're all spinning in this direction because all high pressures in the northern hemisphere spin clockwise, and all low pressures spin counterclockwise. So the winds are from this side, and you can see that it's right there. It's pretty weak, but what this is essentially doing, it's funneling a lot of warm, moist, tropical air from the levels of, Mexico, the Gulf of Mexico, and the Caribbean up into the United States, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. And obviously, this will not only bring a lot of warm air, but also it will be moisture laden. So you know why cold air from the north, it's always so dry, because it's from the north. It's cold air. Cold air does not carry a lot of precip. Sorry, not a lot of moisture holding capabilities. Warm air does. So this is already kind of setting the stage for a powerful, potentially atmosphere ready to be ignited, almost like a bunch of dynamite being placed, right? I mean, maybe not that aggressively, but it's basically ready. It just needs a little bit of a spark, and that sparks comes from this little feature right here across the northwest. Notice that it moves into the northwest on Monday. Into Tuesday, it's already across Nevada, California, and into Wednesday, it is now starting to track towards more of the southeast. Now, notice we have very strong high pressure here, very strong low pressure here. Look at this. All throughout the time frame, look at those winds. They've been just pumping this moisture. And this cold air here that's been gripping much of the northern United States for weeks now is starting to get, essentially eroded. And you can see that blue line, that 32-degree line, that 540, it's getting pushed much, much further towards the north and east. In fact, South Dakota, Wyoming, Nebraska are much warmer than areas potentially like Virginia. Again, that's why there's also going to be so much heat across California. It's directly to do with this system. Now, this won't bring much moisture to California or Nevada, so if you're hoping for a big winter storm out of this, it's not most likely not going to be significant, but it will bring a bit of moisture, so at least that's some good news. Probably though, with the fact that it will be bringing more wind than precip, it's probably worse. Probably a net negative because of all the winds and spurring on with the fires. Not enough to really light any fires out. But notice, we have just an extremely, extremely proficient flow of moisture onto the United States. In fact, I would not be surprised if there are some high wind warnings or advisories right here on Wednesday next week. And these temperatures, mind you, here are going to be warm. You can't tell this based off just the map. Unless you have a very trained eye with the weather. I'm not saying I do, but what I'm saying is that I already looked at this, so I know that they're warm. But notice that you can see we have a lot of 70s, 60s. It's not a heat wave, but it's warm, especially compared to the areas or to just a few weeks ago. There's decent snows down here and pretty cold air. So that's warm. Obviously, no 50s, in Wisconsin or Minnesota. Not that warm yet. Give it probably a few weeks, and then that will occur, as usually spring does bring those extremes. But a lot of moisture. We do have that low pressure. It's pretty much a Colorado low. It develops right or near the Colorado area. Notice there's actually a decent snowy side on the kind of once it collides with another system from the northwest. And what that does is brings actually decent snow into Wyoming, Colorado, Utah. Nothing extraordinary, but it's there. And now look, this thing starts to lift the air. It creates a little kick. It's that little spark for all this dynamite that's been laid here. So what we see is just a classic, beautiful formation of a low pressure. What we have here is the warm front. This air is streaming towards the north, and it is bringing warm air into cities like Chicago, Detroit. And again, I want to tell you guys that this whole setup is consistent with all models, with this very warm air being pumped, this cold air being pretty far to the north, but still south enough where the snow could be forming once the system gets going. But this is where things start getting difficult to tell where exactly this line sets up. Will the snow be across Green Bay like this model shows, or will it be more across Des Moines, or will it be even more into Minnesota, Minneapolis, right? It could go in either direction. At this point, I'm just not really here to tell you what I think because it's too far out. I'll show you some of the trends, but regardless, look, we start seeing pretty decent rains across Oklahoma, and right there, look at what happens between 6 p.m. Thursday and into early Friday. So again, this is far out, guys, very far out. But that is just an explosion of rain, and you can see those yellow colors. That is heavy rain. Those are some thunderstorms. Notice we have quite a bit of ice. You may be wondering why is that occurring. That is because there's quite a bit of stubborn cold air still stuck to the north, along with a lot of warm air overriding that cold air. So often you could get, something. I always have this when my parents say, it's 28 degrees. Why is it freezing rain and not snow? It makes sense, right? 32 degrees is where usually snow forms, but the atmosphere is kind of built up in layers, and if you understand this, then this is critical for predicting. It's very critically important for predicting such events. So across many of these locations, it will be well below freezing, right? It could be 28 to 27, but as you go up just a few thousand feet, which may seem like a lot, it's really not in terms of the whole scope of the atmosphere, or at least the atmosphere where the weather occurs. It's much above freezing. It's 37, 38, and depending on how warm it is up there, it's either sleet, freezing rain. Obviously, if the whole column is cold, then it's going to be snow. But if it's not, and there's just little kind of bouts of warm air pushing in, like with this scenario from a powerful low pressure, as warm air is lighter than cold air, we see freezing rain and sleet. So you can see that's definitely going to be a nightmare potentially. Hopefully not long-lived, but by midnight Thursday, so again, this is occurring during the week, an impactful system, we have already a large snow system occurring across Wisconsin, Iowa, Kansas potentially. Again, according to this model, I'm telling you right off the bat, this would be extremely heavy snow. Not with some, not some just light snowfall events, that accumulate some decent amounts. It's going to be a heavy, wet snowfall because it's falling at extreme rates. We have a lot of pressure from the north, which is from this high pressure. They spin clockwise, so it's smearing all its energy into this low pressure. It's kind of like two magnets. This is a magnet. This is the magnet. And you know how you sometimes put two magnets that repel each other really close to each other? It's like harder and harder to do. That's what they're doing right here, and they're creating an alley of extremely strong winds. The forcing from this high pressure is making this precip fall even more effectively, and it's creating a very powerful winds. 992 low pressure is not strong enough to really create a blizzard. With the help of a low pressure or high pressure, it definitely is. And according to this, assuming this track would uphold, Iowa, Illinois, Kansas, you're going to be seeing a ton of snow out of this, and extremely dangerous snow. It's going to be blowing around. But look, right here we have those colors. That's also another concern. With all this warm air that's been pumped pretty much starting Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and finally it erupts on Wednesday and Thursday, there could be a lot of severe weather. Now, I'm not going to get into the dynamics of this in terms of the severe weather yet. That's a bit hard to predict. If it does become a big threat, I will start talking about it. And I probably won't be doing a live stream, though, as I don't have time for that. But you could tune into a weather channel like Ryan Hall, which is a YouTuber, right, that does just fabulous live streams about the severe weather. And he pretty much will always have you covered with that. He stays up all night. So he does a very splendid job at that. And I do note that, right, I'm just trying to warn you about this. That is definitely looking like a nasty little setup right there. Hopefully that's just maybe over exaggeration from the models, but that definitely would prompt some severe weather. And even if it's a slight or enhanced risk, it really doesn't matter what the risk is. It's if that storm is actually strong or whatnot. I mean, it does matter what risk it is, right? But the difference between enhanced or moderate doesn't mean that you should start carrying once it gets into the moderate category. There's a good chance of severe weather with these type of systems. Okay, so if you've been disappointed with all my talking and not showing of these, I guess these different weather models, let me show you this. So 6 a.m. 12 p.m. and into Thursday, we see a lot of snow. I want to point out, right? So cities like Davenport, Iowa. Why am I choosing you? Because you start off as rain, you go into a little bit of ice, and you turn over to snow. You could get a mixture of all three things. Now, a city like Indianapolis, you could get probably all rain out of this. Or Chicago, mainly rain, a little bit of snow, according to a scenario like this. Now, a city like Green Bay, you'll be mainly seeing snow out of this. So again, it just depends on the location, and this thing shifts a bit to the north, south. It doesn't care what you want or what, how clean of your, I guess, precip type you want it. If you just want all rain, you could hope you're on the warm side of this. But again, this thing doesn't have any boundaries. And I imagine it's not going to move much further to the north because of this screamingly strong high pressure. And I think the models have done a relatively good job with this thing. But still, 100 miles this or that way could mean, some snow for Minneapolis versus no snow for Minneapolis, or a lot for Green Bay versus not as much. Notice now that the severe weather continues or whatnot, this extremely heavy rain, and this thing finally pulls out. So this does not just kind of dissipate for the East Coast. It continues, especially with that rainy side, and then we do see a bit of cold air on that side. So I do apologize if I do sound a bit hyper and whatnot. I'm talking pretty quick. I haven't uploaded a video in 4 days, and I forgot how fun it is, right? Seriously, I've had a really busy week, so I kind of forgot how much I actually do enjoy this, and I'm trying to catch up on all the words I would have normally said. Notice that through the next 10 days, a bit less. This is the precipitation outlook. So notice that the southwest and the west do pick up decent amounts. Again, nothing drought busting. Again, probably maybe do a bit more damage with the winds they bring versus the minimal amounts of precip. Still, for the mountains, definitely not bad. And I do want to note that if you are watching from the west right now, there are some signs from the long range models that towards later February into March, there could be a lot of activity coming towards these areas. Is it going to be as impressive as what we saw in December? Maybe, but it's definitely looking more and more likely. Okay, precip. This is how much GFS thinks will fall in terms of rain. And you can see it's quite a bit of rain, especially where that's those storms, the thunderstorms occur. But even where that snow is, that cold side, it's a lot of precip. So let's convert this now into total snowfall, assuming a 10-to-1 ratio, which, by the way, it's probably going to be falling at a 10-to-1 ratio, if not a bit lower because of how wet and heavy the system snow will kind of be. But notice across some of these areas you could still see amounts that are well over a foot. Now again, I'm not going to start labeling specifics, but obviously if you're caught under this band of heaviest snow, you'd get absolutely walloped by this thing. And again, this isn't just 20 inches or whatever. Let's just go with the lower amount, more reasonable. 12 inches of just nice snow. It would be whipped around. It would be falling onto almost sideways, and it would be sticking everywhere because it's a wet snow. It will be transitioning from rain across many of these locations. So that's what the GFS shows. Now, if this was just the only model that showed what it does and what it does best, that would be fine. But guess what? You might have guessed it. There's different models that I have to show you. Let me show you a German model. This is a good model. I like looking at it. It isn't the best, I wouldn't say. Definitely not my top three, which are the Canadian, GFS, and European. But let's just show you what this shows in terms of snowfall. Now, notice, this one shows a weaker system, as you can tell by the snowfall footprint. But also, the other thing is it's much further towards the south. It includes areas like Michigan, southern Michigan, southern Indiana, or northern Indiana, central Illinois. And in terms of total accumulated precipitation, you can still see that it's quite a bit of rain, so you can assume this is a strong system. And actually, I'll just show you the precip, kind of the radar. Here again, similar dynamics. We have a lot of this warm air getting pumped up from the tropics, the south. But what we do see is basically a weaker system. Notice that this high pressure from the north is also strong, so it's keeping it more towards the south, and it's a more basically a more progressive system. We're a bit more squeezed between these two kind of baroclinic, or squeezes through between this baroclinic zone. Notice the severe weather with this thing is still a concern, right? And you can still see that the snow is definitely still heavy. You're just not as legendary as what the GFS shows. Now I do want to say that the icon isn't accurate often enough for me to really treat it as a good model, and I normally wouldn't be showing you this. However, a model like the Canadian does agree with the icon more than GFS, right? And this is a model that I really like. It's a really good model. It's pretty accurate. Notice, by the way, in the short term, there's a nasty clipper that is occurring right now across the Great Lakes into Saturday and Sunday. That will be affecting portions of Canada and the Northeast into tomorrow, and a little bit of snow across New Mexico and the Panhandle of Texas. But once that goes through, we see a few more clippers again that failed nor'easter that maybe we thought earlier could have occurred, but it won't. And we start seeing the setup, right? Really warm air rising to the north. The system does. So the Canadian does show a system, but look. Again, much more progressive, not as organized. This second wave doesn't really wait or doesn't really, I guess, fully combine with this low pressure, this first wave. And what we do see is essentially a very strong cold front that brings a lot of snow, potentially in a short amount of time from Michigan, Illinois. You can see Indiana right there. Nothing significant, but still a 3 to 6 inch amount would be occurring. And then you can see a lot of rain, and this one actually does show a bit of snow to Kentucky, so almost like a two-pronged system. So it shows the system, and it's active, right? And, we'll just have to wait and see which one is more plausible. And by the way, both models have been stubbornly showing their equal scenarios for the past few days. And notice the Canadian actually, I guess, trended away from the GFS, right? I mean, this is what it showed yesterday. You could see it was more of a snowy scenario, more of a powerful storm. And today, it doesn't really show that. And you can see that it's a much weaker storm in terms of pretty much all categories. The GFS, by the way, this is what it shows right now. And let's just go back to 24 hours ago. This is what it showed 24 hours ago, right? So in fact, you could argue that the GFS, you could see, became actually stronger of a system, more impressive on the snowy side, while the Canadian is trended the other way. So again, not only are we seeing models that are converging, or sorry, diverging from each other, they're completely not even trending towards agreement. We also have just, I guess, the two different kind of completely scenarios that they provide, which is obviously adding a lot of uncertainty. European, the last model I want to show you kind of in, I guess, in precision. Notice we have a lot of warm air. Again, the pumping of this thing is going to be insane. Overloading this cold air, shoving it aside. There's our low pressure. And notice we have a lot of rain, a lot of snow. So right off the bat, you can tell that this thing is already a lot stronger than what the Canadian shows, but not necessarily as well developed, maybe as a GFS. But I do want to say this thing is still has a nasty snow side to it. It's pretty limited. You can see it's a pretty narrow band. So Kansas City, according to this, would get impacted. Maybe not Green Bay or Central Iowa as much. So it's a bit further towards the south, the European. But look at the warm side of this thing. A lot of rain, a lot of precipitation across the Gulf Coast. Obviously, where the snow falls, it's snowing pretty darn heavily, and where the ice is, it's also pretty heavy. And then look all the way up towards the East Coast, and then it's out of here. So it's a bit less of an impactful storm. It's still impactful as heck. I mean, look at some of these precip amounts, 1 to 2 inches. Some of this would be falling as snow. A lot of this here is signs, the spotchy areas that it's thunderstorms, so some severe weather is definitely a concern. And in total snowfall, you could still see, especially for areas of southern Canada, just north of these large cities, could be pretty impressive. But even into Wisconsin, Michigan, decent amounts of snow. And just to show you, the European's been relatively consistent with what it's been showing as well. And you can see this is what it showed yesterday, pretty similar to what it shows today. This is what it showed at midnight, so you can see a bit of a stronger, more snowier scenario. It has ever since kind of trended slightly away from that. So it's hard to tell. I will show you a few ensembles. Sorry. How about that? GEFS, a bunch of models combined. It's 31 models. We often look at this to show you, trends. So this is a average of all the models combined, seeing on what they really, what they show. And if they obviously show a stripe of snow that's very narrow, they all agree on it. And if it's a stripe of snow that's pretty heavy like this, and it's pretty wide, then I guess they don't really agree on it yet, at least. But notice, this is what they all think. If you were to lay them all over each other, this is what they think that snow will produce. Right? You can see it's not high. The snowfall amounts, let me tell you that they're pretty significant this far out, because this is still a week out. And the fact that they have this much confidence on the snowfall footprint is pretty remarkable. But notice yesterday at the same time frame, all of these models, this is what it showed. You could see a lot less confidence, right? I mean, it was more standard across Iowa, but it was also way weaker. It was much broader. There was a lot less confidence. They still showed a system. It was just much more all over the place. So the GEFS actually have trended a lot more consistently with the system. So I would say that out of all the ensembles, they've definitely done a good job. And the GFS has been more consistent compared to the Canadian, at least, and even the European. But the European, I think, does have a decent handle. So let's take a look at its ensembles, and let's take a look at that 5-day snowfall. So this would be occurring within that right here, that time frame. So you can see individual models show a beast. Some of them don't show one. So I am not going to show you all 51 models. Let me go on EPS members, which lays them all over each other, so we could get a good average look at all these models. And boom, let's see. So this is the snowfall footprint that they show. You can see it's not as heavy with that snow as the GEFS. Right? It was more comparable of what the GFS were showing yesterday at this time. Notice though, still they are showing signs of snow, just not significant enough, or at least it's too far out to note any significant trends. But let's take a look at 24 hours ago and see where this has trended. Were they more focused? Were they more, I guess, in agreement yesterday? Let's see. Come on, why is this not loading? I want to take a look at yesterday, because this is a good tool. If yesterday they were more focused, then that means, okay, maybe they're trending away, which isn't really a sign you want to see of higher confidence. You can see they definitely showed a snow track, actually probably a bit stronger than what they show right now. So again, the European models haven't been trending as nicely as, I guess, the GFS. Now let's take a look at the one today at noon. So you could see they showed a lot more confidence into Kansas, Iowa, right? A lot of into Illinois, into Michigan. and or this was today at midnight, and then today in the afternoon, yeah, you can see it's not they've trended slightly down with the system, the European models. So it's interesting to see what they will do, as opposed to the GEFS, which have trended more strongly. But again, a strong system is possible, if not at this point. Again, likely, just because the snow side won't be as profound doesn't mean that the rain side won't. As you can see, even with the weaker scenario with the Canadian, it's still a intense system of potentially a lot of severe weather and whatnot to watch. All right, that's basically it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. There was a lot of stuff in one video to cover, but again, don't fret. We will be covering this in the next few days, every day. And if it does peter out, then I'll make sure to make a video, telling you that this thing is a disappearing threat. But at this point, it doesn't seem so. And notice that the long or short range models, they don't go out far enough to catch the system. All right, thank you so much for watching. See ya. Bye.